What do Fortnite, Apex Legends, and Warzone all have in common? If you said they're all Battle Royale games, you'd be right, but this isn't what I was getting at. Instead, it's that they're all a product not from some corporate boardroom, but from one guy tinkering away in his bedroom. Our story begins in the early 2010s with Brendan Greene. He was just an average Irish guy who was living in Brazil at the time, trying to save up some money to buy a ticket home. But while he was saving up money, Greene became fascinated by the intense survival aspects of the Japanese film Battle Royale, and the desperate scenarios often seen in zombie survival games. So, he had a brilliant idea. He started modding Arma 2, a hardcore shooter game known for its realism and, crucially, its incredible moddability. At the time, one of the most popular Arma 2 mods was the legendary DayZ, made by Dean Hall. DayZ is a gritty zombie survival experience that is basically just Arma 2 but with survival elements and zombies. Greene saw potential within DayZ's framework but wanted to focus purely on the PvP survival aspect, stripping away the zombies and emphasizing the last person standing tension. So, he created a mod of DayZ, aptly named DayZ Battle Royale. It was rough, it was niche, but the core concept was there. Parachute in, scavenge for weapons, fight to be the sole survivor within an ever-shrinking deadly circle. It stood out at the time when DayZ mods and servers were almost functioning the same as the original, with little alterations to distinguish themselves. Greene continued refining his concept, eventually moving his work to the newer, shinier Arma 3. This iteration was called PlayerUnknown's Battle Royale, based on his online handle, PlayerUnknown. It was still a mod, relying on the base game of Arma 3, but it was building a dedicated following who loved its unique blend of high-stakes survival and tactical shooting. His work caught the eye of Sony Online Entertainment, which later became Daybreak Game Company. They hired Greene as a consultant to help bring his Battle Royale vision to their zombie survival game H1Z1. This collaboration led to H1Z1 King of the Hill, a standalone spin-off that essentially carved out the Battle Royale mode from H1Z1 and sold it as its own game. It was a huge step, proving the commercial viability of the genre Greene had pioneered in the modding scene. But the real breakthrough was yet to come. In 2016, the South Korean game studio Bluehole, now Krafton, reached out to him. They didn't just want Greene as a consultant. Rather, they wanted him to lead the development of a brand new, standalone Battle Royale game built entirely around his vision using Unreal Engine 4. And they gave him the creative freedom he needed to work on this brand new title. The result? PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, or PUBG, launched into Steam Early Access in March 2017. And it exploded. It wasn't just a hit, it was a global phenomenon. It sold millions upon millions of copies, shattered concurrent player records on Steam, and became a cultural standard for Battle Royale games. I was one of the early players to this game, and honestly, 2017 was really a year to remember. So, the next time you drop into Erangel or Verdansk or Kings Canyon, remember where it all started. PUBG wasn't just inspired by mods, its entire existence and arguably the entire modern Battle Royale genre it spawned is a direct result of one person's modding journey. But let's shift gears to a game that needs no introduction. The Elder Scrolls V: Skyrim. Released in 2011, it was a massive success, a cultural phenomenon, but here's a potentially controversial take. Was vanilla Skyrim, the game straight out of the box, actually a bit bland? A bit buggy, perhaps destined for a shorter life than its decade-plus reign suggests? Actually, yes. Because let's ask the real question. Are you truly playing Skyrim if you didn't see Thomas the Tank Engine show up to save your ass? Many would argue that the Skyrim we know and love today, the endlessly replayable God Emperor of RPGs, owes a colossal debt to the modding community that swooped in to fix, enhance, and expand upon Bethesda's buggy-as-hell foundation. I know you guys have modded Skyrim to death, made Lydia a storage warehouse, and forced to marry the only well-written NPC in Skyrim against her wishes. Now, don't get me wrong, Bethesda created an incredible world with Skyrim. The sense of place, the lore, the freedom. It was groundbreaking in many ways, but it wasn't perfect. The UI, especially on PC, felt clunky and console-centric. Bugs ranged from hilarious physics glitches to quest-breaking catastrophes. The graphics, while impressive for a 2011 game, showed their age relatively quickly. And after completing the main quests and factions, the Radiant quest system could feel repetitive.
Listen, Hear me and obey. A foul darkness has seeped into my temple.
Enter the modders.
Open the door!
Almost immediately after launch, the Skyrim modding scene exploded, thanks in no small part to Bethesda's release of the Creation Kit. And they didn't just add silly cosmetic items, they tackled fundamental aspects of the game. One of the earliest and most essential mods was Sky UI. It completely overhauled the cumbersome default inventory and magic menus, making them far more intuitive and usable for PC players. It's almost impossible for many PC players today to imagine playing Skyrim without it. Then came the monumental efforts of the unofficial Skyrim patch team. These dedicated modders have spent years identifying and squashing thousands upon thousands of bugs that were never officially fixed by Bethesda. They essentially provided ongoing technical support that the developers didn't. But it went far beyond fixes and UI improvements. Modders completely transformed the game's visuals. The E&B series, presets, and countless texture packs allowed players to push Skyrim's graphics far beyond its original capabilities, keeping it looking surprisingly modern even today. Mods like Climates of Tamriel or Obsidian Weathers overhauled the weather and lighting systems, adding incredible atmosphere and immersion. And then there's the content. Modders added thousands of new items, spells, player homes, followers with complex AI, and entirely new gameplay systems. They created massive quest mods that were practically unofficial DLCs, like Falskar, Beyond Skyrim Bruma, or Legacy of the Dragonborn, adding dozens of hours of new high-quality content. They introduced survival mechanics, combat overhauls like Wildcat or Smilodon, magic expansions like Apocalypse, Magic of Skyrim, and countless other tweaks that allowed players to tailor the game precisely to their liking. You see, Bethesda built the house, but the modding community renovated it, redecorated it, built extensions, fixed the leaky plumbing, and kept it relevant for over a decade. It's a prime example of how a supportive developer attitude towards modding, even if they rely on modders to fix things, can allow a game to transcend its original limitations and become a timeless classic. But this next one is pretty crazy. Let's talk about a game that started as a simple mod, but grew so massive and so influential that it overshadowed the game it was based on. I'm talking, of course, about the king of tactical shooters, ragers, and cheaters, the esports giant Counter-Strike. The year is 1999. Valve's Half-Life, released in 1998, is taking the world by storm, not just for its revolutionary single-player campaign, but also for its robust gold SRC engine, which was proving incredibly versatile for modders. Two university students, Min Guzman Lee and Jess Cliff, saw an opportunity. They wanted to create a different kind of multiplayer experience, something more grounded and realistic that was team-based compared to the faster-paced shooters popular at the time. Using the Half-Life engine and assets, they began crafting a mod focused on a gritty counter-terrorist versus terrorist scenario. Lee handled the programming and modeling, while Cliff managed the community, sound design, and overall direction. They released the first beta version of Counter-Strike in June 1999, completely free for anyone who owned Half-Life, and gamers noticed instantly. The mod's emphasis on objective-based rounds, bomb defusal or hostage rescue, its realistic weapon handling for the time, and its high-stakes one life per round gameplay struck a chord. It was tense, strategic, and incredibly addictive. The community feedback loop was intense. Lee and Cliff rapidly iterated, releasing new beta versions, adding maps, many initially created by the community, tweaking weapon balance, and refining the core gameplay based on player input. The mod's popularity exploded. It quickly became one of the most played online games in the world, often surpassing Half-Life itself and other established multiplayer titles. People were buying Half-Life just to play this free mod. It was crazy. Valve, understandably, paid close attention to this grassroots phenomenon happening right under their noses. They saw the genius in what Lee and Cliff had created and the massive community forming around it. Instead of shutting it down or trying to compete, they did something brilliant. They embraced it. Valve hired both Min Lee and Jess Cliff. They acquired the rights to Counter-Strike and worked with the original creators to polish the mod into a standalone retail product. Counter-Strike version 1.0 was officially released by Valve in November 2000. It continued its meteoric rise, becoming a staple of LAN parties, internet cafes, and dominating the esports scene. Subsequent versions like 1.6 became legendary. Even later iterations like Counter-Strike Source and the modern giant Counter-Strike Global Offensive, and now CS2, all trace their lineage directly back to that original Half-Life mod. This is the ultimate mod success story. Counter-Strike wasn't just enhanced by modders, it was the modders. Gooseman and Cliff took an existing engine and created something entirely new. Something so compelling that the original platform holder had no choice but to bring them into the fold and elevate their creation. Let's venture into the galaxy far, far away for our next day. BioWare's original Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic is rightfully hailed as one of the greatest RPGs ever made. And yes, it's better than Skyrim. Its sequel, Knights of the Old Republic 2, The Sith Lords, developed by Obsidian Entertainment, is often spoken of in the same breath, but usually with a significant asterisk. Why? Because the game released in 2004 was notoriously, almost tragically unfinished. Obsidian had a great team with lots of RPG talent and had ambitious plans for KOTOR 2, aiming for a darker, more complex, and philosophically deeper story than the original. They wanted to deconstruct the very nature of the Force, the Jedi, and the Sith. The problem? Publisher LucasArts gave them an incredibly brutal deadline, roughly 14 to 16 months from start to finish. For an RPG of this scope and ambition, that timeline was borderline impossible. As the deadline loomed, Obsidian was forced to cut massive amounts of content. Entire storylines, companion interactions, character arcs, locations, most famously the M478 droid planet, and crucial plot points that tied the narrative together were left incomplete or excised entirely. The ending in particular felt abrupt, confusing, and deeply unsatisfying to many players. The game launched feeling disjointed, buggy, and clearly just missing huge chunks of its intended story. It was a brilliant, fascinating game trapped inside an unfinished shell. For years, many fans were sad about what the game could have been. They knew, partly from digging into the game files where remnants of cut content lay dormant, that a more complete version of KOTOR 2 existed in concept, if not in code. Then, starting around 2009, a team of dedicated fans decided to do something about it. Working under the project name the Sith Lords Restored Content Mod, TSLRCM, they embarked on an incredibly ambitious journey. Led by figures like ZBYL2 and Darth Stoney, the TSLRCM team painstakingly sifted through KOTOR 2's game files. They found unused dialogue audio, scripts, character models, map fragments, and quest data left behind by Obsidian. Their goal wasn't to add new content, but to restore Obsidian's original vision as faithfully as possible using only the assets the developers themselves had created but were forced to cut. It was a monumental task of digital archaeology and reconstruction. They had to fix countless bugs introduced by restoring cut content, lip-sync new dialogue using existing animations, script broken quest lines, restore missing character interactions, and seamlessly integrate hours of lost story back into the main game. They even managed to restore significant portions of the notoriously rushed ending, providing much needed closure and context. The full version of TSLRCM was released in 2012, and it was crazy. It didn't just fix bugs, it fundamentally completed the game. Storylines that previously went nowhere now had resolutions. Characters whose motivations seemed unclear suddenly made sense. The ending felt far more coherent and impactful. It was, for all intents and purposes, the version of KOTOR 2 that Obsidian likely intended to release before the deadline axe fell. The mod was so essential that later official releases of the game on platforms like Steam even incorporated Steam Workshop support specifically to make installing TSLRCM easier for players. Knights of the Old Republic 2 is a great example of modders rescuing a game not just from bugs, but from its own troubled development. Obsidian had the vision, the talent, and the ambition, but they were hamstrung by corporate deadlines. They didn't just improve KOTOR 2, they finished it, restoring a fractured masterpiece and ensuring that Obsidian's dark, complex vision could finally be experienced as intended. Without TSLRCM, KOTOR 2 would likely be remembered as a fascinating but deeply flawed and incomplete curiosity, rather than the cult classic RPG it is today. But did I leave any examples out? On the other hand, GTA San Andreas modding community nearly got the game shut down, and that's one of the reasons it could never be made today. If you want to know why, then click here to watch.